Commander Vila Tharek stood motionless as the transport doors hissed open, revealing the Earth-based Interspecies Combat Initiative headquarters. Her silver-blue skin caught the morning light, making the intricate pattern of scales along her temples shimmer. As the highest-ranking Zendari warrior sent to this program, she had a duty to uphold her people's reputation for martial superiority. Commander Tharek's welcome to ICI. A human male approached, his hand extended. Major James Kincaid, I'll be your primary combat instructor. Vila regarded the gesture with cool detachment before offering a stiff Zendari salute instead, arm across chest, spine perfectly straight. Major, I am prepared to share Zendari combat methodologies with your soldiers. Our techniques have been perfected over 12 centuries. James lowered his hand, a bemused smile playing at his lips. We're eager to learn from you, Commander, just as we hope you'll learn from us. Of course, she replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. The training facility impressed even Vila's critical eye, state-of-the-art combat simulators, gravity adjustment platforms, and an expansive central mat area where several human and alien trainees were already engaged in practice. Your physical capabilities are impressive, Vila observed as they toured the facility. But your combat forms lack discipline. Zendari warriors train in 97 precise positions that maximize efficiency. James nodded, different philosophies. We value adaptability over perfect form. Imprecision is weakness, she stated flatly. Or survival, he countered. Rigidity breaks, flexibility endures. The following days did little to change Vila's opinion. She demonstrated Zendari forms with flawless execution, her movements like precisely calculated geometry. The humans struggled to replicate her techniques, confirming her belief in Zendari superiority. Then came the morning. James announced they would study human ground combat. Today we're focusing on escape techniques, he explained to the gathered trainees. When your opponent has superior position, sometimes the conventional response fails. Vila watched skeptically as James and his assistant demonstrated a maneuver called the serpent slip, a fluid, seemingly chaotic sequence of twists that transformed a position of disadvantage into one of control. This looks undignified, Vila remarked loud enough for others to hear. James paused, something to add, Commander. Your technique violates fundamental combat principles. The contortions leave you vulnerable. No disciplined warrior would move so erratically. A ripple of discomfort passed through the room. James merely smiled. Care to demonstrate the superior approach, Commander? Vila stepped forward confidently, gladly. Excellent, I'll apply the hold. You show us the Zendari escape. She positioned herself on the mat, allowing James to establish the starting position, his body partially over hers, her arm controlled, hip mobility restricted. A basic immobilization. Ready, he asked. Proceed. James applied pressure gradually. Vila attempted her counter, a direct power movement designed to create space through precisely applied force. But James adjusted fluidly, neutralizing her technique before she could complete it. She tried again, muscles straining against his hold. Nothing. Her precise movements met only further restriction. This isn't a fair demonstration, she protested. Your mass advantage. Try the serpent slip, James suggested quietly, just once. Pride wounded, Vila attempted the human technique, twisting her torso in that undignified spiral, rotating her hips against all proper form. But halfway through, she over-rotated, her inflexible Zendari physiology failing to accommodate the movement. Pain shot through her back as she found herself completely immobilized, contorted awkwardly on the mat. Major, she hissed through clenched teeth, I cannot extract myself. James immediately released pressure and helped adjust her position. Are you injured? Only my dignity, she admitted, rising stiffly to her feet. Their eyes met, and for a moment Vila saw no mockery in his gaze, only genuine concern and something else. Interest, challenge. Perhaps, James said softly, there are things we can learn from each other after all. Vila straightened her training uniform, acutely aware of the other trainees watching. Perhaps, but your methods require practice. Tomorrow morning, private session before others arrive. She should have refused. A proper Zendari commander would never admit the need for remedial training. Agreed, she said instead, surprising herself. I will be here at dawn. Commander Vila arrived at the training facility while Earth's sun still hovered below the horizon. The building was silent save for the low hum of environmental systems. She had deliberately come 15 minutes early. A Zendari never arrived merely on time. To her surprise, James was already there, practicing a series of flowing movements that seemed more like dance than combat. His eyes were closed, his breathing measured, each transition between postures seamless. Vila found herself transfixed by the controlled power in his movements. "Good morning, Commander," he said without opening his eyes. "How did you?" "The door's air pressure changed, and your footsteps have a distinctive rhythm." He completed his sequence and turned to face her. "Zendari hearing is exceptional, but humans compensate in other ways." Vila approached the mat, her posture rigid. "I am prepared to learn your technique." "First, let's warm up, move with me." James began another sequence, slower this time, "Mirror what I do." She followed his movements with technical precision, maintaining perfect form. After several minutes, James stopped. "You're still too rigid, your body is fighting itself." He moved behind her. "May I?" She nodded stiffly. His hands gently touched her shoulders, applying light pressure. "Relax here, let the tension flow away." The contact sent an unexpected sensation across her skin. Zendari rarely touched outside of combat or intimate relationships. His hands were warm against her cooler body temperature. "Your species holds everything in," James observed. "Every muscle engaged, every moment." "Control is strength," she replied automatically. "Sometimes, and sometimes it's exhaustion." His hands moved to her upper back. "Try to release just these muscles, keep the rest as you prefer." Vila attempted to comply, finding it surprisingly difficult to selectively relax. "It's not about abandoning control," James explained, his voice closer to her ear than she expected. "It's about directing it purposefully, using only what you need when you need it." As their training session progressed, Vila found herself increasingly aware of James, his scent, the controlled power in his movements, the unexpected gentleness in his instruction. When they practiced the serpent slip again, his body partially covering hers to demonstrate the proper position, she felt her heart rate accelerate in a way unrelated to physical exertion. "Now spiral here," he guided, one hand on her hip. "Your body can do this. You're fighting your own anatomy." After several attempts, something finally clicked. Vila executed a clumsy but functional version of the escape. "Better," James helped her up, his smile genuine. "See, not so ridiculous after all." "It was effective," she conceded, "though I still look like a disjointed puppet." "Practice will smooth the transitions, and speaking of practice," he glanced at the clock, "same time tomorrow." "Yes," Vila answered, perhaps too quickly, "for training purposes." Over the following weeks, their dawn sessions became her secret indulgence. While maintaining her authority during regular training hours, each morning she allowed herself to be a student again, learning human methods that contradicted everything she'd been taught. James proved an attentive teacher, challenging but never condescending. He seemed genuinely interested in understanding Zendari combat philosophy, asking thoughtful questions about her training. "Your precision is remarkable," he told her one morning after she demonstrated a traditional Zendari takedown. "What we need is to combine that precision with adaptability." "The two seem mutually exclusive," she replied, accepting his offered hand to rise from the mat. "Only if you make them so." He held her hand a moment longer than necessary. "Like our species, different approaches but compatible in interesting ways." Their eyes met and Vila felt an unsettling warmth spread through her chest. She withdrew her hand. "We should focus on the training," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. "Of course." His slight smile suggested he'd noticed her momentary lapse. "Let's try something new today, a technique that requires both precision and fluidity." As he demonstrated the new movement, Vila found herself studying not just his technique, but the man himself. The way his eyes crinkled when he concentrated, the respectful way he corrected her form, the intelligence behind his teaching methods. For the first time in her life, Vila's legendary focus was compromised. More concerning still, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. The training room buzzed with conversation as Vila entered for the afternoon session. 3 weeks had passed since her humiliation on the mat, and much had changed. While still maintaining her Zendari dignity in public, she had begun subtly incorporating human techniques into her demonstrations. "Commander, impressive counter yesterday," called Novik, a human trainee with whom she'd previously had minimal interaction. "That combination of the Zendari third position with the human redirect, brilliant." Vila acknowledged the compliment with a formal nod, though inwardly she felt an uncharacteristic flutter of pride. It wasn't the Zendari way to seek approval from others, yet these humans' recognition satisfied something in her. "Today's exercise will be different," James announced once everyone had assembled. Computer-simulated hostiles, randomized responses. You'll work in pairs, one Zendari, one human. Of course, he paired himself with Vila. Major, she acknowledged as they took position. Commander, his eyes held a warmth reserved for their private sessions, ready to improvise. The simulation began with holographic opponents materializing around them. Unlike standard training programs, these adapted unpredictably, learning from each encounter. For the first few minutes, Vila maintained her methodical Zendari approach, executing textbook responses to each threat. But as the difficulty increased, she found herself struggling to maintain position. Flow with it, James called, seamlessly transitioning between attacks, like we practiced. Something shifted in Vila's mind. She allowed her body to move less rigidly, incorporating the fluidity James had been teaching her. The results were immediate. Where she had been merely competent, she now excelled. They found themselves fighting back-to-back, their movements synchronizing naturally. When a simulated attacker broke through her defense, James was there, creating an opening for her counterattack. When he overextended, she stabilized his position without conscious thought. "They're in perfect sync," she heard someone whisper. As the simulation reached its highest difficulty, a holographic opponent trapped James in a corner. Vila executed a perfect serpent slip to reach him, creating an escape route. "Now," she called. They moved together, her precision complementing his adaptability. As the final opponent fell, they found themselves face to face, breathing hard, bodies close. "That was," James began. "Effective," Vila finished, suddenly aware of her hands still resting on his shoulders. The simulation ended, plunging the room into silence. The other trainees stared in undisguised amazement. "That's what integration looks like," James announced, stepping away from Vila with obvious reluctance. Not just learning each other's techniques, but understanding the philosophy behind them. Later, as the facility emptied for the evening, Vila found herself lingering in the observation room, reviewing recordings of the session. She hadn't recognized herself in the playback. This warrior who moved with both precision and flow seemed like a stranger. "Incredible, wasn't it?" James's voice startled her as he entered. "It was unexpected," she admitted. "You're creating something new, not just Zendari, not just human, something better." He moved closer, studying her face. "Why are you troubled by that?" "Because it contradicts everything I've been taught. A Zendari warrior maintains perfect form at all times. We do not improvise. Yet today you did, and it was brilliant." It felt, she searched for the word, right, natural. James's hand moved to her face, gently tracing the scale patterns at her temple. Among Zendari, such a gesture was profoundly intimate. "May I?" he asked, his voice low. She should have refused, should have maintained proper distance. Instead, she leaned into his touch. "How much have you researched Zendari customs?" she asked softly. "Enough to know what I'm asking." His eyes held hers. "Enough to know I should wait for your answer." Vila placed her hand over his, pressing it more firmly against her face. "You've been patient enough." Their first kiss was tentative, experimental, the literal meeting of alien biologies. But the second was anything but hesitant. Her arms wrapped around his neck as his encircled her waist, pulling her closer. When they finally separated, Vila's normally ordered thoughts were in chaos. "This complicates matters," she whispered. James's smile was unrepentant, the best things usually do. "Commander Tharix, explain yourself." The holographic projection of Fleet Admiral Kresh towered over Vila in her quarters, his expression severe. She maintained formal posture, hands clasped behind her back. "Admiral, I'm not certain what explanation you require. Your monthly reports describe incorporating human combat methodologies into your demonstrations. You were sent to teach, not to adopt inferior techniques." Vila chose her words carefully. "Sir, I've found certain human approaches offer tactical advantages in specific circumstances. My primary duty remains representing Zendari combat excellence." "Excellence is not achieved through compromise, Commander." Kresh's eyes narrowed. "There are also concerns about your interactions with the human instructor." Her heart rate spiked, though her expression remained impassive. "Major Kincaid is my liaison. Our interactions are professional. See that they remain so. Remember your position as a representative of the Zendari Defense Force." The Admiral's tone softened marginally. "Your record is exemplary, Commander. Don't jeopardize it over temporary fascinations." After the Admiral's image faded, Vila sank onto her bed, an uncharacteristic gesture of defeat. The past month with James had awakened something she'd never experienced, a desire for connection that transcended physical attraction. Their dawn training sessions had evolved into something deeper, conversations extending beyond combat theory to personal philosophies, childhood's dreams. Last week he'd shown her the ocean, her first time seeing Earth's vast waters. They'd stood together as waves crashed against rocky shores, his arm around her waist, her head resting against his shoulder. A moment of perfect peace. Now her superiors had noticed, and the consequences could be severe. Zendari did not tolerate deviation from established protocols, especially from their military elite. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "It's open," she called, composing herself. James entered, his smile fading as he read her expression. "What's wrong?" "Admiral Kresh contacted me. There are concerns about my conduct." "About us, you mean?" "About everything, my integration of human techniques, my reports praising certain aspects of human combat philosophy." She stood, packing the small room. "My interactions with you." James remained quiet, giving her space to continue. "I was raised to believe the Zendari way was perfect, methodical, controlled, precise. Emotions were distractions to be managed." She stopped packing, facing him. "Then you showed me their strength and flexibility in adaptation, in feeling." "What will you do?" he asked, voice gentle. "The logical choice is clear. I should report that I've been conducting comparative analysis, maintain formal relationships, and complete my assignment without further complications." James's face showed resignation rather than surprise. "I understand." "No, you don't." Vila moved closer, taking his hands in hers. "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not choosing the logical path." His eyes widened. "Vila, I've learned more than combat techniques from you, James. I've learned that sometimes the strongest position is the one that allows for change." Their kiss was different this time, not exploratory or passionate but affirmative, a decision sealed. Later that evening, they walked together through the facility gardens, no longer hiding their connection. Several trainees nodded approvingly as they passed. "My people will not understand," Vila said quietly. "Zendari mate for life. Relationships are not entered into lightly and never with non-Zendari." "Are you having second thoughts?" "No, but there will be consequences." James stopped walking, turning to face her. "Vila, I need to know, is this worth it to you, us?" She traced the contours of his face, committing every feature to memory. "When I arrived, I saw only weakness in your methods. Now I understand the strength it takes to remain open, to adapt, to care." She pressed her forehead against his, a traditional Zendari gesture of deep connection. "You are worth whatever comes." In the garden's dim light, surrounded by earth plants that had evolved so differently from those on her homeworld, Commander Vila Tharix, the perfect Zendari warrior, made her choice, embracing the beautiful uncertainty of human love. The observation deck buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from 12 species had gathered for the Interspecies Combat Initiative's culmination demonstration, a showcase of integrated techniques developed over the 6-month program. Vila stood alone in the preparation chamber, performing her centering ritual. Today she would present something unprecedented, a combat form that merged Zendari precision with human adaptability, a form she and James had created together during countless dawn sessions. "Commanders." She turned to find Fleet Admiral Kresh himself approaching, his actual presence rather than a hologram indicating the gravity of the situation. "Admiral," she saluted, "I wasn't aware you would attend personally. I felt it necessary given the unconventional nature of your final report." His tone was measured. "You understand this demonstration will be scrutinized by the High Command." "I'm aware." "And you still intend to proceed with this hybrid approach?" Vila met his gaze steadily. "I do. With respect, Admiral, what I've discovered here is not weakness but evolution. The integration creates something stronger than either approach alone." The Admiral studied her for a long moment. "Your instructor, Major Kincaid, he means something to you." It wasn't a question, but Vila answered anyway. "He does." "Personal entanglements cloud judgment, Commander." "Or clarify it," she straightened her shoulders. "I stand by my decisions, Admiral, both professional and personal." Whatever response Kresh might have offered was interrupted by the announcement calling participants to the main floor. With a final evaluating look, he departed for the observation deck. James waited at the entrance to the demonstration area, all set. "My Admiral is here," she said quietly. "He's not pleased." "Having second thoughts?" Vila took his hand briefly, hidden from view. "None." They entered the demonstration floor together, taking position in the center. Around them, other pairs, human and alien alike, prepared for their own presentations. Distinguished guests, the program director announced, today represents the culmination of our first interspecies combat initiative. Each pair will demonstrate integrated combat methodologies developed during their collaboration. Vila and James moved to the center as their names were called. The lights dimmed except for those illuminating their position. They began with traditional sequences, Vila demonstrating pure Zendari forms, James showing standard human techniques. Then subtly the integration began. Vila allowed fluidity into her movements, James incorporated precise Zendari positioning. As their demonstration progressed, the distinction between their styles blurred. They moved in perfect synchronization, neither fully human nor fully Zendari in approach. Where traditional Zendari forms were rigid, Vila added dynamic transitions. Where human techniques lacked structure, James incorporated geometrically perfect positioning. The result was mesmerizing, a dance of complementary strengths. When they shifted to combat application, their movements became even more impressive. Attacks flowed seamlessly into defenses, rigid blocks melted into fluid counters. In the final sequence, they demonstrated the practical application, James assuming the attacking role, Vila defending. As he lunged forward, she executed a perfect synthesis of the serpent slip and the Zendari third position, transforming vulnerability into advantage with neither the stiffness of pure Zendari technique nor the sometimes chaotic nature of the human approach. The demonstration ended with both warriors balanced in perfect symmetry, neither dominating, both supporting. Silence held for 3 heartbeats before applause erupted, led surprisingly by a Zendari general in the observation deck. Later, after accepting congratulations and enduring detailed questions from various military officials, Vila found a moment alone with James on the facility's roof terrace. Earth's sun was setting, painting the sky in colors her homeworld never displayed. Admiral Kresh offered me a choice, she said quietly. Return to Zendari space for reassignment, or extend my posting here as permanent liaison to the Interspecies Combat Initiative. James's expression remained neutral, though she detected the tension in his shoulders. And what did you choose? I requested a new assignment altogether. She turned to face him fully. Joint development of advanced integration protocols requiring significant collaboration with human combat experts, specifically one expert. Understanding dawned in his eyes. They approved this. Reluctantly, but our demonstration was persuasive. So you're staying? For at least 2 years. She allowed herself a small smile, if you're amenable to ongoing collaboration. James closed the distance between them, his hands gently framing her face. I believe I can accommodate that request, Commander. As his lips met hers, Vila reflected on her arrival 6 months earlier, so certain of her superiority, so rigid in her thinking. Now she understood that true strength came not from unyielding adherence to form, but from the courage to adapt, to integrate, to transform. What are you thinking? James whispered against her lips. That some battles are worth losing, she answered, drawing him closer as Earth's sun painted the sky in colors of possibility.